Hi everyone, and welcome to our episode of Ladies in Leadership with Nori and Liz. As you know from our previous episodes, we're a recently established movement for ladies in leadership where we talk about all things confidence building, mindset motivation, conquering self limiting beliefs, working with that imposter, developing resilience, and um, just developing like the confidence to be able to stand out the crowd. So being the leader in your own life. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the much anticipated topic of emotional intelligence. So, what does this even mean? How does it affect us? And why is it important? We hear this word, being thrown around, emotional intelligence, both in the workplace and in our personal lives. But today we're really going to delve into it and understand what it actually is. So, when I think about emotional intelligence, I think about self awareness, process of understanding yourself, also understanding other people. I think about emotions, using them in a positive way to communicate effectively. I also think about people having an open mind, being able to acknowledge alternative perspectives as a means to growth. Um, and also, I also see this as a sense of wisdom of some sort, where we can utilize our peripheral vision and basically see the bigger picture rather than just seeing ourselves. I'm going to hand over to Liz in a minute, where she's going to talk in more detail about what it actually is, how it begins, and how it's initiated. Liz is also then going to introduce us to a six pillar framework where we can look at and understand the different facets that go into understanding the concept of emotional intelligence. So, with that said, Liz, over to you.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I guess it's morning where I am at this moment. So good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. So emotional intelligence, as Nori has said, is a really important component of success in the workplace. And in fact, these days, it's really an important component to everything that we do. So if you want to think about emotional intelligence is the sister to what we call IQ, right? So IQ was the psychological testing processes that have been used for many years to look at how we function. And the IQ, or that is our intelligence quotient, talks about executive functioning, the way that our brains function executively. The emotional intelligence component is equivalent, but it's not about executive functioning. It's about the other side. The other side is that piece which is, as Nari has so aptly said, very interpersonal in nature. The actual founder of this whole concept of emotional intelligence is a gentleman named Daniel Goldman. And you can read any of his books. He has a number of them, and they're all focused in the same area. And he defines emotional intelligence as the capacity for recognizing one's own feelings and those of others, as Nari has said, and for motivating ourselves, for managing our emotions effectively. And I think emotional intelligence competency is really a learned component, whereas the IQ component, or the intelligence quotient, is a little bit more about the nature piece. It's what you're born with. And this is really, really fluid. So the beauty of that is that we can change our perspectives on that and how we interact with ourselves and with the rest of the world. And so by knowing a little bit more about ourselves through this kind of a tool, it gives us a better sense of where we're strong and where we might want to work. So I actually have a quote here from Tom Peters, who, as many people know, wrote this book called In Search of Excellence a number of years ago. And he says that success in business today is 15% technology and 85% emotional intelligence. And I would tend to agree with that. You often hear recruiters at universities saying what they're really looking for coming out of universities is B students, not the A and the A+ students, because those individuals tend to have a broader perspective on life and more experience in other areas, which leads them to be more intelligent in terms of emotional intelligence. So in terms of this whole concept of self-awareness, though, When we think about leadership, we always have to start with us. So we always say leadership begins with me. And there's this box that underlies everything that we do and all the data that we collect about ourselves. And in that box, that's that box that says, this is who I am. And we need to really become aware of that individually before we can actually look at then how do we relate with the world and how we want to change that. So it really is the fundamental component of all leadership education is around that perspective. Because if we aren't aware of where our strengths are and where we are not as strong, then we do what is often referred to as leaking the truth. So that means that our lack of strengths shows up when we're not looking. And I think that's really important for us to be aware of, that sometimes we show up a certain way and we think we're showing the world orange juice when in fact we're showing the world apple juice sometimes. And so what's important there is just to be aware then of what we bring to the table and what we bring to the world around us. So in terms of the 6-pillar model that we're going to focus on today, as Nori has said, this is an extremely deep, extremely broad area. And so by just simply giving you the overview today, we're just opening that door to drop into more depth of how we apply it going forward in our next session. So the 6 components, of those 6 components, I am going to look at self-awareness, self-regard, and self-actualization. And Nori is going to focus more on, now see if I get these right, empathy and an interpersonal relationship, essentially. And what was the third one you wanted to focus on, Nori?
And motivation.
Motivation, right, of course. How would I forget motivation? Yes, exactly. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to focus on the self components, if you will. And so the first piece I've already talked about a little bit, which is that whole concept of self-awareness. So if we're not aware of how we show up, then we're going to show up ways we're not aware of. And I know that sounds like a circular argument, and it is a little bit, but I think that's really important. And so we often say that we want to gather data on who we are. So sometimes if we're to hold a mirror up to your face and say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I see, this is everything that I am on the outside, we also need to make sure that we take this kind of information and we consider who we are on the inside. So this component of self-awareness is truly, am I aware of how I show up? That's a long answer to a short heading. In terms of self-regard, it is really the ability to look at and understand oneself. So it's that ability to almost step out of where we are and to see and understand what we're projecting. It's kind of a baseline feeling of who we are and how we see ourselves. And that means that we're accepting our perceived positive and negative aspects, as well as our limitations and our possibilities. So it's really important, though, that many of us in this context of self-regard, in this baseline, because of some of the things that we've achieved in our lives or the things that we've seen in our lives or the people that have shaped our lives, we see the world in a particular way. And if we are very negative toward ourselves on the inside, and we step away from the inner critic on the inside, then we can actually begin to really see more and more who we really are. And what's important is that we move away from being negative toward ourselves and move towards that positive side. And then finally, and this isn't finally, this is the self-actualization sort of overrides everything in our lives. If we think about the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and many people have studied that over the years, the base is safety and all of those pieces, and the top is self-actualization. So that's truly realizing your potential. It's building the capacities to realize your potential and to strive to do what we really want in our lives. So it is, what is it that we really want? And then to focus on that and to build the skills and the capacities to actually truly live that life that we've always wanted to live. And so, in order to really achieve self-actualization, we need to ensure that we handle all of these other 5 pillars that enable us to move toward that self-actualization. So the next 3, I'm going to pass it back to you, Nori, to do the next 3.
That was amazing. Thank you for explaining that in such great detail and giving us some really good examples that really helps us to understand what this really means for real life. So thank you very much for that, Liz. That was brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the next 3. The first one being motivation. So motivation for any achievement in life requires like clear goals and a positive attitude. So like a go-getter attitude. This often is attributed to having a growth mindset whereby you are motivated to set those goals and achieve the things that you want. If you naturally have obstacles in the way, which we all do, you're able to reframe those negative thoughts almost and change them into something positive, whereby you can get up and go and do the things that you need to do, because that requires some real motivation. So there's 4 different elements of this. First one is achievement drive. So this is striving for improvement and excellence, striving for a certain standard in your life. That's going to give you the achievement drive. Commitment. This requires consistency. So this is the ability to see the bigger picture and keeping your eye on the ball, or the prize, as we say. Because if you want to do something in life, so if you want a particular qualification, you've got to consistently go to the modules, or you've got to consistently study the different subjects, and then you've got to consistently revise, do the exam, and then you can get the qualification at the end. So that requires motivation to stay consistent in the first place, and commitment. Next one is initiative. This is the ability to be keen to act on opportunities for growth using your initiative. And lastly, optimism. This is persistency, staying persistent in whatever you're trying to achieve, despite any obstacles and setbacks that come in your way. So, people who are motivated really are looking to establish long term success. And emotionally intelligent people are generally quite motivated for that long term success. They make good decisions based on their instincts. They're able to follow their instincts. They're able to take constructive criticism and
Mhm.
use that to improve their performance. So they're not going to look at it as like, okay, this person said this or this person said that. As long as it comes from good intention and there's value behind the constructive criticism. They're able to use it for their betterment of their future. They're also able to look for resolution in a rational way, right? They're motivated to succeed, to achieve. So they look for resolution rather than creating problems. And overall, they're motivated to be more productive, and they're passionate about succeeding. This is where the emotional intelligence comes into it. It's all encompassing with motivation. The next pillar I'm going to talk about is empathy. This one's extremely powerful and is essential to emotional intelligence. People who have empathy, they care about others. They're looking at the bigger picture and not necessarily only concerned about their own personal gain. They have an increasing ability to empathize and see other people's points of view and other people's perspectives. For this reason, if you the advantages of being empathetic, you are able to gain support. You're able to gain support from people on your team. You're able to create networks. You're able to create respect and credibility, and you're also able to diffuse high charged conflicts in both your professional and in your personal life, all with the skills of being empathetic. So when you're able to understand feelings and perspectives of others, you know that you are more emotionally intelligent. So your ability to put yourself in another person's position, put yourself in another person's shoes. This is how you allow yourself to have empathy. This really helps with a team environment because you're able to develop a team. You're able to maintain a team because you have the best interests of everyone at heart, right? So that really helps. So again, linked to motivation, you're able to give and receive feedback, right? That's really, really important. A huge element of emotional intelligence is feedback, because with feedback, we can both improve ourselves and we can help other people improve themselves. So this is really important about growing both ourselves and growing others. Empathy means we're able to respond to feelings, both ourselves and again, both of others. Another element of it is, though, a lot of people sometimes assume people who are empathetic that maybe they can't stand up for themselves, maybe they're too feeling orientated, maybe they're too emotional. These sorts of things do get thrown out there, but that's not the case at all. Empathetic people are actually usually very astute as well. So because they've got the best interests of everyone at heart, they're able to challenge the people who are acting unethically and unfairly. So they're able to stand up to those people and hold them accountable because they actually want the right thing to happen. So they're able to reverse that by standing up to the people who or circumstances that need to be stood up to. And lastly, in empathy, people who are empathetic are able to read body language very well. They're able to pay attention to this. So this means great leaders who have empathy, what helps you to be a great leader, sorry, if you have empathy, because you can determine how someone truly feels, because you can latch on to what the signs of when someone's feeling good as opposed to not feeling good, so you can respond accordingly. So if somebody's just presenting themselves as I'm fine, I'm okay, but really a leader can see that actually they're not, and they have some other needs that need to be met, and they're able to navigate through that way and able to connect with another person. So this really helps in both professionally and personally, but helps in like being in a service oriented environment, or like it helps to promote organizational awareness, self-awareness, and awareness of others, which is really helpful. So like I said, empathy is an absolutely massive one. And I do find that one's coming out more and more in the media these days, because really people are starting to understand that it's actually a huge facet of people's personality, and it's actually something really beautiful and useful to promote and have in and amongst our peers. So it's really good. And the final one is social skills. This is about the ability to easily connect, to talk to people, and to network. This is ever so important in today's world, obviously, where everything is about connection, especially being online. And there's so many opportunities out there which you can get through this networking, which everybody seems to be doing these days. So having good social skills means that a person has it. In terms of emotional intelligence, it means that a person is socially responsible, means that you care for others. Again, in line with the empathy piece, you care for others. You're not coming at things from a selfish stance, because you're focusing on the development of others. So when you're practicing emotional intelligence in this way, you're also practicing humility.
Mhm.
So it means you're able to be a team player. If you're able to manage your own emotions and that of others, you're able to be a great team player. So that means that you are a great communicator. You can support a team. It means you can manage change, for example, which is usually a huge transition, whatever changes we go through, both at work and personally. Again, able to resolve conflicts diplomatically, not from a selfish way, but in a diplomatic way. So in terms of relationship management, it's huge, able to influence, and this teamwork thing that I keep going on about, being a team player. So really being emotionally intelligent means you stand really well being a member of a community, a charity, a workforce initiative, being anything, or even a team player in a sports team. Yeah. So in different facets of life, having emotional intelligence really helps to improve the performance of a group of people, as opposed to looking at yourself selfishly and trying to win over and above. So social skills is really, really important with emotional intelligence. And that basically brings us to the end of the 6 pillars. So I hope you've all enjoyed that, and it's been informative for you. As Liz said, we're going to develop this next week in our next episode. So in conclusion,
Nori,
yes,
before you do that, can I throw a little example in?
yes, I'd love if you did. Yes.
So, as you were talking, I was thinking about an example of an individual, and I just thought this would be a really good way to put it all together. This individual actually stood out for what is not emotionally intelligent. And so it gives you a sense of, we've said what it is, so what it isn't is. There was an individual in one of my classes, one of my leadership classes, who was young, and he was very interested in finding his way up the ladder, so to speak. And so they were asked to pick a photo of something that spoke to them. And there were all kinds of beautiful things all over the floor. There were families and beaches and flowers and all sorts of things. And he picked this pyramid, and he stood up with his pyramid, holding up his pyramid, and he said, "So the reason why I picked this is because it depicts what's going to happen to me. I'm going to be at the top. Do you see the top of that pillar? That's me. And I'm going to be your deputy minister. And you need to look out, everybody, because I'm going to the top." And then he continued on about how, nothing mattered to him but getting to the top. And, all these pieces of this triangle were just stepping stones. And he would step on anything or anyone that got in his way to get to the top of the pyramid. So I just thought that's a beautiful example of an individual who does not bring all of these 6 pillars of emotional intelligence. And there was an individual with that selfish approach that you just mentioned, Nari, that whole selfish approach, I'm going there. And what was really quite interesting was as the week progressed with this population of students, everyone else took him down. All the participants took an opportunity to kind of show up his lack of emotional intelligence. So, in a very classy and non-threatening way. But my point is, there's an example of what it truly is not. And we don't get where we want to go if we approach it that way.
Wow, I love that example. And yeah, that's a really good example. And we all see that in different shapes and sizes in life, don't we? Where people, and that's where we're not showing that social element of it, where we are going for things selfishly, as opposed to like seeing things collectively, moving everybody forwards and empowering that movement of moving forwards and having that collective goal. So like you said, that kind of perspective might work in the short term, but in the long term, it basically doesn't win the hearts of everybody. So this is why this is so important, and it's becoming more and more popularized both at work and at home. Emotional intelligence is so important. I know loads of people I'll give you another example, with such high IQs, loads of qualifications under their belt. And don't get me wrong, I'm an education advocate. I promote people to educate themselves and study and in whatever topic or subject or skill that they're interested in. But the emotional intelligence, it goes in alignment with it. So one without the other isn't necessarily powerful, because just having the degree or just having the qualification doesn't give you all of these different elements that we're talking about. It's like all encompassing, like almost like part of somebody's personality, and it's embedded within that. So such a beautiful example in it, and that's really helpful. So in order to conclude then, my little piece on the conclusion is, I think that emotionally intelligent people are generally happy people, because they're positive, they want to help, they're motivated to succeed, they want to see other people succeed. So for that reason, they're both able to accomplish more tasks for themselves, and they're also able to serve others. So in a way, they're able to serve a purpose whereby everybody can succeed. They're also motivated to solve problems in a rational, diplomatic way. So it creates a positive, happy experience, as I said. Being able to, like you said, understand your own emotions and manage those of others is a real skill, especially if you're in an environment where there's lots of people. I mean, the last 2 companies I was with, there was in excess of like 5,000 or 6,000 people working in these companies. You'd be dealing with stakeholders from lots of different departments. So you had to really deal with a lot of people in parallel. So having emotional intelligence and the other thing is, things don't always go your own way. So being able to self-regulate, self-manage, like manage yourself when things don't go your way, that is emotional intelligence as well. And the other thing that I will say, especially for leadership, because we are all about ladies in leadership, aren't we? That's what our movement, our platform's all about, if you don't have emotion intelligence is so important, because without it, you go at things in a biased way. You go at things with your own opinion. You go,
Mhm.
you are moving forward with self-doubt, with your own confidence deficit. So you can't necessarily be the best leader you can be. But once you've
Mhm.
conquered emotional intelligence, you actually have conquered all of those things, because you know yourself, you know your values, you're strong about your presence, about your stance. So you're able to show up consistently, both for yourself, both for others. And you, for that reason, you're able to motivate yourself and others, create a positive influence, and embrace this teamwork perspective from a very holistic perspective.
Mhm.
So yeah. And any final thoughts from you, Liz?
I agree with that. And I think, my example of the young man shows that, um, you know, we know that by birth, women have, on board when we arrive in this world with a sense of empathy and a sense of, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-awareness, oftentimes that we don't often see in the other side, in the other half of our population. And we've started to see that in the workplace and in management constructs where, women are bringing this emotional intelligence with them into boardrooms. And, not every woman has a beautiful, full-fledged 6 pillars of emotional intelligence, but there are certain things that we are, essentially we're born with and we are socialized for. And those things do actually broaden and build, as you've said, a more positive and emotionally intelligent team. And that leads to more production. So without that, what we end up with is management by fear. And, let's face it, we want to manage with love. We don't want to manage by fear. So with that, I'll say that looking forward to that next half where we do some application. And so you can reach me at elizabethhoxter@gmail.com. And stay tuned. The website is on the way.
Yay.
Right. Back to you.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Liz. So, yeah, really look forward to our next episode where we really delve a little bit deeper into ways how we can boost our emotional intelligence, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who want to know how to improve their emotional intelligence. They're questioning their level of emotional intelligence, because a lot of this is sometimes learned behavior and we can always improve ourselves. So, it doesn't necessarily mean you either are or you aren't. Everyone's at a different stage and there's always room for improvement. So, that's amazing. And we're also going to look at the differences in emotional intelligence between men and women. So something you mentioned just now is absolutely true. Women and men, we have certain masculine qualities and feminine qualities, and sometimes one is like pushed under the rug, maybe over the other. One is more dominant over the other, but it's about bringing those different skills and collectively embracing them for enhanced growth, enhanced performance and output. So we're really going to look at that as well, the differences between men and women when it comes to emotional intelligence and how to utilize that to our advantage. So thank you again, Liz. What a great interview. I look forward to our next episode, which is also on emotional intelligence. And you can find me at Sky High Leadership or Sky High Empowerment Coach on Instagram. That's where most of my content is currently. So I look forward to connecting with people and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Right.
You're still recording.